the expansion draft has always been polarizing. Actually, when I don't even say polarizing, everybody hates it.
Everybody hates it.
Everybody hates the expansion draft. Welcome everyone to Red Stars Report. We're starting a podcast here at Red Stars Report. I'm LT. I'm your host.
And I'm Grant. And I'm the co-host.
Woo! Grant and I met, 2022? Invited me onto their podcast.
Yep.
Why did you invite me on your podcast?
Because you're doing some great work covering everyone's favorite NWSL team, the Chicago Red Stars.
And so I started Red Stars Report February of 2022. In 2021, when I was watching the season unfold, there was a lot of it didn't seem like there was a big like a centralized location where info or discussions were happening on the Chicago Red Stars. So I decided to start Red Stars Report to kind of build a community that could all come together and talk about the team that we love. And I thought now would be a good time to partner up with Grant to bring a podcast into that space as well, so we could have more discussions together on this club, and also just give everyone the latest info, and actually see some personalities behind a community of people who love this club. So how did you get into the Red Stars, Grant?
I think I started watching in 2018 or 2019. I think whenever they were on ESPN News, I think that very long time ago, for such a throwback. I was also I loved how many local talent was on the Red Stars. Specifically Zoe Gorowski, who went to my high school. Um, just like the amount of local talent that they brought to the club, and how well they were doing, and Sam Kerr, who is my favorite soccer player. I'm also a Chelsea fan.
Of
Just
course.
want to put it out there right now. Up the Chels. Anyway, um, the Red Stars, they were just so fun to watch in 2018, 2019, and I just kind of became a fan ever since. I am local too, so Chicago sports is my thing, obviously, from my background, for those that are watching on YouTube. But just community and being able to brag about women's sports in Chicago is very important to me. I am a Chicago Sky fan too. Been going to games since second grade.
Skytown.
Yeah, Skytown. Got the mini championship banner back there too. Um, yeah, what's not to love? Well, I guess if you go back to all the crap that happened last year and a few years ago,
Yeah.
and then Arnhem. But I care about the players, I care about the community, and that's why I'm still invested, because I just care too much. Yeah.
Yeah. I had been watching women's soccer for a while. I started watching the women's national team in the Olympics back in like '08, I think it was, which was not a good Olympics.
I
And
wouldn't remember. I was in kindergarten in
that's
08.
fair. um, and I would watch them. I didn't watch, friendlies or anything like that. I just kind of caught them in major tournaments, and I really enjoyed the club or the team. And then in 2019, during that World Cup run, I was just watching Alyssa Nair play. I just hear one of the announcers say, goalkeeper for the Chicago Red Stars. And I was born in Illinois. I grew up loving all things Chicago sports. And for some reason, I had just never heard of the Chicago Red Stars before, and I immediately after the Olympic or after the World Cup, I just sought out where I could find to watch that club, and I watched my first few matches and watched Alyssa Nair play, watched Sam Kerr play, fell in love with those players, and especially Sam's partnership with Yuki Nagasato, who's still with the club, currently a free agent. And just watching the matches, I not only fell in love with the club, but I just fell in love with the sport. Like I was never a huge soccer fan, but watching the Chicago Red Stars play made me like live and breathe soccer nowadays. And fast forward a couple years, watching them in 2021 in the championship, and then everything that followed that off season, there was a lot of break in the community. A lot of people not supporting the club anymore, or at least supporting from a distance. And that's kind of when I started getting involved in the community, and it wasn't easy to be in a community that was a fan of a club with a lot of turmoil. And I just wanted to build a space where people could come together, um, and continue to support that club. And I love the players, and I want them to, be the best. I always am supporting them in their international play as well, watching all their international games. And after I started the Discord, and really started to bring a lot of people in the community together, it just made me love the club even more because not only were the players great, but the people who also loved the players were great. And I was so lucky to just find so many people that care so deeply about the sport and care so deeply about the Chicago Red Stars. And it's just exciting to continue to bring more and more to this community as we go along.
Yeah, the community is just also another big part of why I still am a Red Stars fan. Um, oh gosh, I can remember like, when the report came out and, you know, reading all that stuff online and I was one of those accounts, or at least I did it from my personal and then my podcast account, which if anyone isn't aware, I used to host a podcast called Women's Sports Matter, and I was very vocal on that account because it had a decent following about, about Arnhem and everything that was happening in Portland and Louisville and all that. But seeing real time reaction of people that care about the league and then seeing steps taken by the people in the community is just so awesome to see. The NWSL fans in general are just pretty awesome. The way that people band together in times of chaos is the word I'll use is pretty special. So
Chaos is a word used very often in the
yeah,
NWSL, whether it's good chaos or bad chaos. It's
after dark.
yeah, NWSL After Dark, very chaotic. Um, yeah. The the reason that I wanted to kind of start this podcast with Grant was because it was just time, to like Red Stars Report was always a social media based thing just to kind of get my expressions out about the club and connect with people, and then the Discord further connected me with people, and everyone really seems to enjoy the content that I've brought for the last couple of years. And Grant was, nice enough to reach out to me and say, "Hey, I'm looking for my next venture, and I was thinking about doing a Red Stars podcast." Would you be interested?" And I was like, it's something I've always wanted to do, and I was just kind of looking for a co-host, and there was Grant. So I hope that people can kind of come with us on this journey to bring more content to this community.
It's so funny that you bring that up about, like, the messaging and all that because I looked last night.
Did you?
I looked at the message and when I sent it so the last episode that I posted for my show was on August 15th.
Okay.
Do you remember when I reached out to you by chance?
The
The
day?
date?
No, I don't know the date.
15 days after I posted my last episode.
That was it. 2 weeks, and you're already on to your next thing.
But I was like I was thinking about it last night, I was like, "There's no way that I was so quick about it," and then I was. That's so absurd to me that I would do that, but I
What
need to be doing something constantly, so it makes sense.
was it something that you were thinking about doing even before you ended
Yeah.
your Women's Sports Matter?
I think it was just, like, such a broad concept of a show where I felt like I was doing too many NWSL related content, and I
Sure.
was like, "Oh, I need to, like, step back from that." But then when I tried to do that, I was like, "You know what? This doesn't really fit what I wanna do. I feel like I should just do something soccer related instead." Because I am a soccer fanatic. I mean,
Yeah,
that is my life now. I tell people all the time, like, baseball, really not my thing anymore. Basketball, a space I currently work in, really not my thing anymore. Soccer is like eat, breathe, sleep, soccer. So this just makes so much sense for me to do this because it's what I love. And I do miss my show.
yeah,
You know, it was a great show. It had a
it
great
was.
run, 3 years, like 100 plus episodes. Never even celebrated my 100th. I never did that because I didn't know how many episodes I've done in total, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
So I'll celebrate 100 on here.
So it's yeah, okay. But it was just, time to hyper focus is kinda what you're
Yeah.
saying.
And I
Focus
mean, I
on
just moved back home too at that
yeah,
point. I was home for like probably a week and a half. And I was like, okay, I need to end my show because my life is like chaos right now after like transferring from Nebraska and then getting into Lewis and
yeah,
dealing with all of that. Finishing King County, like, yeah, just need to pause. But I'm good now.
sweet. I'm happy you're good because here you are, here we are. So I thought maybe we could, just kinda recap a little bit about what's been going on in the off season for the Red Stars. I'm sure a lot of people are aware, but we'll just give a little bit of a space where we can kind of bring it all together. We can start with the roster moves that the club has made during this offseason. The first thing they did was exercise the option on Alyssa Nair, goalkeeper for many years for the Chicago Red Stars. We all love her. Um, exercised the 1 year option, so she'll be playing in 2024. Future's kind of uncertain after that, but we have a pretty big contract was given to Mackenzie Wood, who currently plays overseas, but the club really seems to be uh, very focused on her and her development. And so who knows kind of what will happen, but I'm very happy that Nair's back for another year. And then Kerry Recaro re-signed, and that was the first free agent re-signing that the club had done. She signed a 2 year deal to continue with the club. And then Taylor Malum re-signed for 1 year plus an option. Defender didn't see a whole lot of minutes this year, but when she was out there, she was kind of um, important to fill those gaps that were left by some injured defenders or some defenders that were off on international duty. And then Jill Aguilera, her option was exercised for 2024 as well. So that's all the signings that the club has done in the offseason. As we said at the top of the show, Monday is very important. Seems like there's a lot of things that are going to happen with free agency. So we'll kind of see what happens in that space. But the current free agents for the Chicago Red Stars are Casey Kruger, Yuki Nagasato, Mallory Swanson, Tierna Davidson, Bianca St. George, Emily Boyd, Kayla Sharples, and Ella Stevens is a restricted free agent, which means that any offer that is given to her from another club, the Red Stars can match it. So a lot of free agents, not quite sure what will happen, but out of that list, Grant, what do you think are the most, let's just say the two most important signings, maybe three.
You have to re-sign Mal Swanson.
Yeah,
You have to.
that's true.
Like, why would Dansby Swanson go to the Chicago Cubs, sign a contract that has a no trade clause
For seven
for her
years.
to leave? Makes no sense. Next, I'd say Tierna Davidson. I really do not want her to go to Bay FC. Like, I
There's
have a
some rumors
Davidson
about that.
jersey hanging up, by the way. It's not visible today. Next time it will be. Um, just and then you said a third. We get a third.
Yeah, to pick a third.
Kruger. I like. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to. It's just these people are an integral part of the Chicago Red Stars, and if all of them leave or like one of them leave, I feel like you know bad things can happen unless we sign somebody as equally good or maybe better than them, which I don't see happening.
I don't know if you've
So
looked at the rest of the free agency lists, but I don't know if there's any center backs that I would pick over Tierna Davidson.
exactly.
Yeah, there were rumors that she could go to the Bay. I hope they're not true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those would be my three as well. Definitely.
If
Um,
anyone says otherwise, I feel like you're lying.
yeah. There's a Kayla Sharples is also very important if they don't sign Tierna Davidson
Yeah.
back to them because she's been an integral part to playing backup to them, and you kind of almost, it's like, yeah, there's a difference, but it's hard to find the differences when she's out there and instead of either, Casey or
Yeah.
Tiana or Aaron. It's she's a really good player, and I think it would be a loss for the Red Stars to lose her as well. Um, Bianca St. George, a fan favorite, you know, people love her. And I think the role that she played on the right wing in 2023 was incredibly important for the attack of the club in that season, but that was without Swanson. And I think when Mal comes back, if she comes back, she should, but if she comes back and plays on that left side, most likely you're going to see Penelope Hawking on the right side. And it's kind of like everyone who's been kind of filling those spaces in the forward line while Mal has been gone. Like, what do you do with those players now? Or like, what is a player going to feel like, getting benched after starting, every match for the
Yeah.
entire year? And then Yuki, also a fan favorite, probably nearing the end of her career, the club didn't exercise her option, but stated that they're in negotiations with her to bring her back. So that's good news that we know they're at least talking to one player trying to
I
bring
don't
him
see her
back.
leaving though.
No, I don't see her leaving either. It really seems to be either, Chicago or retire. There's no way. She
Yeah.
just got married. There's no way that she's gonna, pick up everything and leave, this late in her career. And then the last one on the unrestricted free agents is Emily Boyd, who filled in for Alyssa Nair during the World Cup, played very well. Um, she's kind of hit or miss. She's had a lot of injuries in her career, but has always been a pretty solid backup to Alyssa in her time in Chicago. And it seems like with the heavy investment that the club has made towards Wood and even sending her overseas to get even further development, where she can actually get some time playing instead of sitting behind Alyssa. Um, I'm not quite sure what they're kind of going to do in the goalkeeper arena with Boyd.
I don't think she's gonna come back.
I don't think she will either. And I don't, because she's such a big presence in the locker room
Yeah.
and in the fan base. I don't know how people are going to feel about her not coming back. That'll be really interesting to see.
I would be surprised if she came back. Like,
Is it
shocked.
is it just because the lack of time that she gets?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe Gotham or, like, Bay FC should sign her, but I feel like she's not gonna get the playing time that she wants or maybe if in her mind
No.
deserves.
As
So,
but even if she does go to a place like Gotham, Abby Smith's going to come back and
yeah.
probably be their starter. So I don't think I don't know where the goalkeeper space is just so small in the NWSL, and there's people who are backups for years who finally kind of get a chance to shine, and they do.
It's kinda
Uh,
like Portland with Bixby and Smith, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, or Fallon Tullis Joyce over in when she played for the Rain before she got out of there. Um, and then the last and only restricted free agent is Ella Stevens. I felt like every time they've utilized her in the um, forward line, it's been successful, but definitely I don't think her potential lies there. She's an attacking mid. She has always kind of thrived in that role, sitting just behind the front line.
Yeah.
And if I, she's gonna come back, I highly doubt that
Spoiler alert.
she won't be back. There was just videos of or pictures of her training with other Red Stars still here uh, with the club. So it's not, and her relationship is also tying her to this space. And Tatum is also, signed and isn't leaving. So I highly doubt that she doesn't sign back with the club. And I think if a new head coach comes in and sees her potential as an attacking midfielder, she could be very well utilized in that area. I would hate to see her not be at her full potential when she's out on the field with the club. And it was kind of like, even though she kind of continues to thrive when she is out there, there's just some games with the way that she's utilized. She just kind of falls, you know, in the back of the mind and doesn't make a huge impact. So hopefully things can change if and when she signs
Yeah.
back with the club.
Maybe it's tomorrow.
Maybe it's maybe it's tomorrow. It
Hopefully it's tomorrow.
it could be tomorrow. I don't know. That's another thing that we could talk about because currently there's no publicly announced GM or head coach for the Chicago Red Stars. Kind of
We're never gonna get one.
thought it was going to happen before the expansion draft.
Wishful
Didn't
thinking.
happen. There's I have nothing on I have nothing on this. I don't know how you're gonna continue to go through an off season, especially with so many players to either re-sign in free agency or even just within the free agency market or the overseas market to bring players in to grow a club that finished bottom of the table last season. New ownership comes in, Laura Ricketts, other investors as part of the new ownership group. A new president comes in, Karen Lietzow, and we have no GM, we have no head coach. Go through an expansion draft without either of those roles. The college draft is on January 12th. If those roles still aren't filled, it'll feel very much like last season when um, Chris Petrucelli wasn't even the head coach yet. Um, I think our GM at the time was an interim GM until they were made full GM, and it just seems not that that they drafted poorly. I think Penelope Hocking and Ali Schlegel have been like top tier
Yeah.
draft picks. Um, Sad that injuries kind of plagued them in their first season with the club, but they'll continue to get playing time. They're very good players. So if we go through another situation of not having a GM and not having a head coach for a college draft, I think that's just ridiculous. So hopefully during this free agency period, as free agents start to sign other places or back with the club, like that is, signs of life. But hopefully they'll also announce a GM and a head coach because those are incredibly important to have during not just during the season, but during the off season. So we'll see what happens.
Is that on your Christmas list?
Well, I would say it's on my Christmas list, but Christmas is, just is less what's an 8 days away when we're recording this. So
The Red Stars are not gonna gift us a GM
I would
and
like
head coach
them
before
I'd like them
Christmas.
before Christmas. So it's not a Christmas gift. It should be like a Monday morning gift. It's Tuesday morning. I don't know. I just, whenever that comes is it's gonna be good. I don't know exactly who it would be.
Yeah,
I
same.
don't I don't know. I mean, I know who I want the head coach to be,
Well, who do you want?
but um Moscato
Yeah.
used to coach for
Manifest it.
Tigres. So and she used to play for the Chicago Red Stars with Ella Masser. So that's something that I'd like to see a lot.
I have no opinions on the head coach until the name is released.
And it could be someone that we don't really know,
Like Chris Petroselli.
like Chris Petrucelli, who I thought was supposed like the club was in such um turmoil at that time, and it was obviously important to find a head coach who could, you know, bring the best out of players in or on the pitch, but also to be a player's coach. Like it needed to be someone that the players could trust, that the players felt comfortable around. But from the day that they announced that he was going to be the head coach, I always felt that he was going to be a transitional coach,
Yeah.
a coach that could come in and create an environment where players felt safe and they felt protected and they weren't being abused by their head coach. And then after a couple of years, you say, thanks for all the work you've done. New ownership comes in, new head coach comes in who can actually provide, both a top quality on field product but also continues to um, maintain that safe environment that the club should be under new ownership. And so it wasn't a surprise that he was gone after 2 years. He did an incredible job his first year with the resources that he had and the players that he had. And then the second year, it just fell way too short. Like you made the playoffs your first year, bottom of the table the next year, even though, like, I know I don't like to put Mal as like, the number, this is the reason that the team
Yeah.
wins, that kind of thing. But you also got Tierna Davidson back. You also got Casey Kruger back. Nair seemed to be in like like one of the best, shapes that she's been in her career after her rehab. And it felt like there was going to be better results. Maybe not playoff results, but because of the forward line being, very important, and Mal kind of being the centerpiece of that. But it just felt like the club on paper shouldn't have been dead last, and they were, and you're not going to continue as head coach after that.
I mean, that Kansas City game at the end of the year that was crazy.
Yeah,
That was brutal.
it was brutal. There was several
Every game.
matches.
Just
There
kidding.
was not every game. Some games like gave you so much hope for the club,
Yeah.
and then the next game they'd then lose like 5-0, and you'd be like, what? How did that? I don't know. It was a frustrating year, but there was still so much to be excited about moving forward. Then you go into an off season where there's a bunch of free agents and there's an expansion draft, and it just goes up and down and up and down. And it was exciting to have new ownership come in and feel like it felt like Laura Ricketts made an immediate impact on the players. It seems that she may have a big impact on free agency as well. The amount of money that is being invested in this club now is incredibly important to not only the club itself, but the league itself. And uh, then comes Friday, where the expansion draft happens, and the list of protected players was not the biggest shock to me.
Yeah.
There was players on the unprotected list that I had hoped would be protected, but I didn't expect them to be protected. And then it was all worthless and our
Yeah.
stress was meaningless because was no there were no Chicago Red Stars selected in the expansion draft.
We survived.
We survived, and for some reason almost kind of became like the butt of every joke
Mhm.
in the NWSL community, almost like two new clubs come in and nobody wants your players. But I think a few of those players that were left unprotected, like I will sit here and say that they were overlooked, but I'm glad they were overlooked because I
Yeah.
would rather have them still with this club. And uh, the expansion draft has always been polarizing. Actually, when you don't even say polarizing, everybody hates it.
Everybody hates it.
Everybody hates the expansion draft.
Like today, for example, this is not Red Stars related at all, but the trade between San Diego and Houston. Is it Utah or no,
Mhm.
Bay FC? Yeah,
Yeah.
ridiculous. You could have handled this outside of the expansion draft, but yet you decided to cause chaos, absolute chaos, and have all of this stuff unfold within a week. Like, first of all, I don't know if Angie like knew all of this was gonna happen. I don't know how any of that stuff works, but I just feel bad for people that have to be involved in this kind of trade when it should have happened whenever the deadline was.
The
Everything should have
Bay
been handled.
the Bay and San Diego were probably negotiating protection, and it, for some reason, didn't work out. And we were talking in the Discord with some people earlier today, Sunday, about how, like, it almost felt like a hostage situation
It definitely was.
where it's like, "We're gonna take your player, your local kid
Yeah.
who's from the area, uh, now give us something in return,
Give us
and
money.
we'll give her to another club,
Yeah.
and then you're gonna have to figure out with them what you want to get her in return." It it's so stupid. Like, I don't understand how people can trade, like, I don't know how you can just deal with, someone's emotions like that, someone's like, life like that.
Yeah.
Sean Nahas, the, um, head coach for the, North Carolina Courage, said in a tweet, I think it was on Saturday, or maybe it
I
was
think it was during the draft.
Friday night. He said, "We need to be protecting the league, not protecting 9 players per team," which I think like, that's a very good statement. Like, you need to be thinking about and protecting the lives and the emotions of the entire league, and not putting all these players through kind of what I would imagine is like hell. Just, you see your name on that unprotected list. Like, what are you thinking? Like, what goes through your mind as a player? It's just, it's unimaginable to think I'm sitting on this list, and there's a potential that some club that I don't want to go to is just going to say my name, and then I got to move there.
Yeah, like, imagine you're just chilling on your couch, you're hanging out with friends, and all of a sudden you get a phone call. "Hey, you have to move to Utah." Are you kidding me? I literally would freak out. You're telling me I have to move to Utah? No way. Not a
Which
chance.
is why there's been players during these expansion drafts that have either essentially retired or
Mhm.
had gone overseas to avoid playing with the club that selects them. And I know
Yeah.
that there's been, you know, some quotes out there from people at the Bay that
They called the
yeah,
players
they said, like,
beforehand.
"We made sure that these players wanted to play for us and everything," but it's like, if you did that with Angie, then, like, hopefully your phone call was, "Your team will get you back later," and not, "Hey, we're gonna hold you hostage and trade you
Yeah.
somewhere else, and then they're gonna trade you back to San Diego." Like, I can't imagine that. It's just awful, and the whole thing just needs to be abolished, and we need to figure out something else that they can do with expansion clubs to not put players through this just terrible situation that should just never happen, ever.
And also, how are you gonna recruit people outside of the US to come and play for you if, there's a possibility that you're gonna be left unprotected and have to move to somewhere you don't wanna be at?
Yeah, because a lot of international players are recruited by either players in the league or other international players to come play in the league. And if I'm a player on a club and I'm good friends with or have gotten to know through like a World Cup or something, a player who plays internationally. I'm like, hey, you should come to the NWSL, come play for our club. It would be great. And then they have their negotiations, they come play for the club. Club leaves them unprotected the next year. They go to some other team and then they'll just leave the league, which is pointless for expansion clubs to do that. And you see that in some cases where clubs will leave players unprotected and almost essentially tell expansion clubs like, I dare you, like, I dare you to pick
Like Louisville.
these people. Yeah, they're like, I dare you to pick this person. They're not going to come play for you, so
How many
waste your
was
pick.
it? 4, 5 that didn't go?
I think it was, I think I can't remember the number, but like high profile players clearly were not going to play for your club,
Yeah.
and you pick them anyway. Like I don't know what any of these expansion clubs are ever thinking. Um, I don't know what it's like to be in that room. I don't know what it's like to make those phone calls, but it's just all around is just seems like an unpleasant experience that shouldn't exist in this league. And I know it exists in a lot of major sports, not outside the United States, but within the United States, the NHL just had an expansion
The
draft a couple
MLS.
couple years ago. The MLS does it. It's just not good for the sport. It's not good for the league, and something just kind of needs to change.
It's not business as usual. That's not how it should be.
No,
That's just
well,
yeah.
the NWSL is chaos every year anyway, every day anyway. So maybe it is business as usual, but it shouldn't be
The new slogan for the NWSL.
chaos.
Business as usual, but
Oh,
maybe it
business
shouldn't
as
be.
usual, but maybe it should. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's. I don't know what to think about it, but I'm glad that the Red Stars made away with keeping all of their players. They didn't have to trade an absurd amount of allocation money or draft picks to gain protection.
Yeah.
I hope that whoever is currently running things for the club just went, yeah, we're not doing that. We're not giving up that much uh, for protection. And then for the clubs not to even pick any Red Stars is fine by me. I don't care what other people say. It's fine by me. I wanted those players to stay and they're staying. So I
Yeah.
mean something could have happened. There could be trades that could happen, within the next week that could change that, or which were kind of, maybe backdoor deals. Um all along. It just
Draft day is important too.
it's yeah. Off season is always such a hard time
Yeah.
in any sport, but in the NWSL, it's also hard, especially as Red Stars fans over the last few years. The off season has always kind of been um, brutal to the club when free agency started, losing so many players, especially kind of like gutting the entire midfield the year before, trading all those players away for protection, but for obvious reasons, still hurt, but it was expected.
Yeah. I just hope that we don't have a moment like last year's draft, where Lynn Williams went over to Gotham, like a trade that will absolutely shock you
Yeah.
and every other fan. I was sitting on my couch watching the draft, and when that happened, I was
Yeah,
like
my jaw was on the
I
floor for sure.
yeah, I was like I could not believe what I just witnessed.
At least she's thriving in Gotham
Yeah,
because she's such a good player that I mean, obviously she was worth it,
yeah,
worth that draft pick. And it's not like you know, it's not like she's not enjoying and and thriving where she is now, but listening to her talk about getting that phone call while she was at camp too.
Yeah, that's
Like
right.
that's just awful. Um, I could that it's not pleasant, but like I said, like we said, the league is just kind of chaos. And I think people very much hyper focus on this league, um, and the players more so than other leagues. It never seems in other sports when when players get traded or there's like those kind of shock moments. It usually always seems to be surrounded um by like excitement and like happy surprise kind of thing. Whereas in this league, it always just seems to like sink your heart, you know, when big trades and stuff happen. Like I'm sure when Gotham heard that Lynn Williams was like Gotham fans heard that Lynn Williams was coming to them, they were
You could hear
probably very excited.
the audible shock,
Oh
though.
yeah, during draft night, you could hear the gasps.
Yeah, Cloud9.
Uh, like wild situation. Definitely not something that anybody saw coming.
Yeah.
But I'm happy that she's happy now, and you know that's not an excuse for what happened. Like, oh look, she's happy now, but it's good that it all worked out in the end for her.
I just hope whoever, like, signs with us from another team, which I don't know why, but I feel like I know that we just got the new ownership and everything, but why would anyone wanna come to a bottom table team? Hopefully, it's because they love Chicago. Well, they love Bridgeview. They love Bridgeview so much. And Red Stars fans, Local 134 and all the other groups out there that come and support the team. Um, I hope they really care about the city and wanting to change the club. So I'm excited to see who comes in from other teams and maybe if we get international players somehow.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I think a player like Carrie Recaro stating last season that she was like, I saw a need in Chicago's midfield. I want to play for Chicago, and then signed with Chicago. It that speaks volumes for hopefully other players to kind of feel that way, but also for her to then in free agency sign another 2-year contract with the club to stay here. Um, I think that is even more important because of the change that happens with new ownership, new president, you know, eventually a new GM, new head coach. For a player to want to come to your club, knowing exactly who that club is based on the information that's out there and the players that I'm sure she had talked to during that offseason to for Angel City to say like, yeah, we'll trade you there because you want to be there. It's very important, and it's something I've always also really respected about the league. On the opposite end of the spectrum, like there's teams that will do these crazy deals that kind of shock everyone and are kind of harmful to players, but then there's other clubs that will always make accommodations for players to be exactly where they want to be. They're like, I want to be on this team. I want to play with these players. And I know that clubs will always try to make that or some clubs will try to make that happen. And we've seen it a lot. We saw it, especially with Chicago after everything that kind of happened in the 2021 offseason, trading players to where they wanted to be to uh, to get them out of the situation that was happening in Chicago. Um, Instead of just keeping them hostage and holding them and saying you can't leave even though you hate it here.
Yeah.
So I think it's you know there's steps to be made, and hopefully with everything that's kind of surrounding the club now, hopefully a better environment is created, more players want to play here. I think Alyssa Nair also signing or agreeing to her uh, option for another year is also very important because she very easily could have just said no, became a free agent, and you know went off to do something else. But she's the captain of the club, and for her to sit there and say like, I'm going to play here and I love it here, and hopefully more players feel that way.
Excited and nervous.
That's sports, isn't it?
Yeah.
Excited and nervous. And it's like you never know. No one who's around you will ever know uh exactly what your emotions are while watching sports. The other day, I was at work watching the expansion draft, and I'm just like, my hands are just like buried in my head, like staring at my phone, and coworker next to me is just like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No,
No.
I'm not okay." And it's really hard to explain to you why I'm not
Yeah.
why I'm not okay. And then I was suddenly, in a better mood when Utah and the Bay passed, uh, and started going to their uh, exclusive picks, I guess. And
Mhm.
I kind of got this feeling that Chicago wasn't gonna be selected, and suddenly I was a little happier. And the coworker's like, "Are you happy now? Like, what is happening to to you?" I'm like, "It's very hard to explain. I can't explain the roller coaster that is the NWSL and the emotions of sports." So
Yeah, no, but honestly, like, I feel like soccer in particular is just, like, it's very emotional, roller coaster, but,
yeah,
it's worth it in the end. At least I keep reminding myself that it
yeah,
is.
it's worth it. This league is so amazing, so full of high quality talent, and anybody will say it. It's a league where every single match you have no idea what's going to happen. The number one team versus the bottom of the table team. You can't go into there and be like, oh, the number one team's going to smoke them, because anything could happen in this league, and anybody could finish at the top and anybody could finish at the bottom. It's been that way for several years, and it's an exciting time to be a fan with the growth of not just the NWSL, but just women's sports in general. Um, and I'm really excited to be a part of that space, and continue to provide a space for people to come together in that community and continue to share their love for soccer, and share their love for the Chicago Red Stars. Our Discord doesn't just talk about the Chicago Red Stars. We have NWSL discussions, we have international league discussions, international competition discussions. We have U.S. women's national team discussions. There's a page for women's basketball. There's a page for men's soccer, which I made reluctantly, but people in the community wanted to talk about it. So I added a page for that. It's a great space. There's a lot of people there, and you don't have to be a fan of the Chicago Red Stars to be a part of it. Um, but I'm really happy that we can provide that space, and I'm really happy that we can now bring this this whole Red Stars report stuff into a podcast, the podcast arena, and we'll kind of see where it goes from here. Grant, when I don't know, first episode kind of uh, ramping down.
Yeah.
We've got through pretty much everything that we were going to talk about. We'll kind of see what happens with free agency, whether that happens before this podcast is out, after the podcast is out. We'll find out. But um, you'll be able to find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you find podcasts. If you want to listen to us ramble while looking at our faces, you can watch the podcast on the Red Stars Report YouTube page. You can follow us on all our social media platforms at Red Stars Report, make it nice and easy. And you can also join our Discord server that I mentioned. The link to that will be in the description below, and I'll put it at the end of the episode as well, so everyone can kind of see that. But anything else you want to say, Grant, before we head out?
Welcome to the podcasting community,
Thank you,
first of all.
thank you. You were the first person that invited me onto a podcast, and
Did you
and
do more than that, or was it just
no,
mine?
it's just
No?
yours. No one. I mean, other people have invited me, but I never really done anymore. Um,
Well, don't lie. You were on Brian and me.
I did do recap segments for
That
Bryant and me.
counts.
But I never got to interact with them on their podcast in a recording. I just
Well, you're
recorded
never gonna
pieces
be
for
able
them
to because
and
apparently they're
talked.
done. So,
Oh, well, that's we'll bring them
because
on. We'll bring them
yeah,
on to Red Stars Report and we'll have a chat with them. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode of Red Stars Report. We'll be back, sometime soon to do another episode. But like I said, you can just find us anywhere at Red Stars Report, Discord, YouTube, anything. Um, but until then, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the off season, and we'll talk later. We'll talk in the Discord. I'll see you guys later.
see ya.